Mr. Walberg for his 5 minutes of questions.
I thank the chairman and I thank the witnesses for being here, and I thank my fellow committee members for taking the trip down here. And Mr. Chairman, I think this is a good pattern to have on a regular basis of going out to the places we're finding information from and talking to people. I represent a district that goes from Lake Michigan to Lake Erie, the borders with Canada. We have illegal drugs being smuggled across Canada and from Canada in interesting ways. Scuba divers coming across the Detroit River, Lake Erie, to our district, but nothing at the level of what we're seeing here. I must admit that. Last week I held a town hall, teletown hall in my district, and heard from Michiganders across the 5th District. And one community, Dowagiac, Michigan, over on the west side of the state, in fact, told me a person said that they had had 8 fentanyl overdoses happen in their town in 1 week this year already. 8 people in 1 week in a town of 5,000 people, and that's unacceptable. In my district as well, we have, as far as I know, the only facility of its kind that provides low-income housing for individuals who have come through treatment centers and are trying to make it, and rather going back to the communities from which they came, they come to Andy's place, and they have a full panoply of services there: legal services, social services, psychiatric services, job training services, all in the building, and the peer pressure in the positive way that goes with that. We began to see 2 years ago that facility begin to be able to keep up with people coming in. That's all changed now. Waiting list has increased. Clearly, this administration is failing to protect Americans from the scourge of illicit fentanyl coming in through the southern border, and we've seen that take place. Mr. Archer, with 8 overdoses in just one small town, I'm concerned about the ability of our hospitals to keep up and provide good quality care. Our healthcare workers are already being stretched thin as a result of COVID and the shutdowns and all that went with that. How is the fentanyl crisis contributing to this issue with hospitals specifically?
Thank you for the question. I think our hospitals in this nation have never been in a more perilous position. I think post-COVID, we've got a very brittle healthcare system with stressed out workers across the continuum. In a hospital in any community's first goal and biggest focus has to be on its own community. It has to be those that they call neighbors and loved ones. And so I think any massive flow of patients of this type would severely strain and has a risk of breaking many of the health systems. That is a concern, and then the impact that it has on families trying to yes, deal with that as well. The care, the cost, the upheaval in life also. Mr. Judd, thank you for your longtime service for our country. You've had an opportunity to talk about some things that you need. Specifically, you've said we need more Border Patrol agents. We accept that. In what we saw today, even in the processing center, and how many staff were needed from all aspects of the border protection, and then not on the border. In a list of priorities, what works best in tools for securing the border? Could you list it priority-wise, starting with Border Patrol agents? Yes, but
yeah, look, I never want to put the cart before the horse. I will always say that we have to have policy. Policy is the #1 thing that we need. Once we have policy, then we can evaluate what else is necessary. After policy, I would then say personnel, both at the ports of entry, between the ports of entry. Once you have the personnel, then I would say technology such as infrastructure. Once you have the infrastructure, you can work down. But you have to see what works and then work down. Otherwise, all you're doing is wasting taxpayer dollars, and I don't want to do that.
When we saw infrastructure upgraded just a few years ago, even on the most eastern edge of this area, the Rio Grande Valley area, when we saw infrastructure, whether it was water, whether it was electronics, did we see significant downgrading of the influx at the border?
So where we really saw it was in policy. Once President Trump implemented the migrant protection protocols, that's when we saw it. But then couple that with everything else, yes, That's what happened. But even President Trump struggled with illegal immigration until he implemented the migrant protection protocols. He created the will. We always say don't recreate the will. He did create the will because no will existed and he had to do it.
Thank you. My time has expired. I yield back.